Hi folks, I'm Duncan Gill, child and adolescent psychiatrist.
And I'm Victoria Lee, licensed clinical mental health counselor. And welcome to Is There a Med for That? The podcast about teen mental health, behavioral problems, and what to do about them.
Victoria and I have been working together for years with kids. Sometimes we use therapy, sometimes medication. Sometimes we just give guidance to parents.
And we realize that sometimes kids just need to be left alone.
We don't have all the answers, but we've got some of them. We'll do our best to share what we've learned over the years working with struggling kids and their families.
We hope you enjoy the show and that we can be helpful to those who have taken on the hardest, most important job in the world, being a parent.
Hi, Vicki.
How's it going today?
It's good. You know, I realize that we start most podcasts that way. And it's funny because we spend a lot of the morning together. But when you're on a podcast, you sort of have to...
Say hello again?
You have to say hello again for some reason. I don't know why that is.
I think because we're inviting other people into the conversation in a kind of, maybe not in the conversation, but to join us in some way.
I think that's it.
Right. I feel like it's a polite thing to do. Polite greet and welcome.
That's right.
Part of our practice.
Hello, Vicki.
Hello, Duncan.
What are we talking about?
You know, we were playing around with a couple of ideas today, and what came to mind, actually, when I was driving into work today, just being a parent myself, and from doing parenting group this past week, and probably many other weeks, but talking about how do you deal with feeling negative as a parent? I think part of some of our overarching principles that we practice are, the very foundation of it is about creating a positive family culture, positive leadership, and as the parents, hopefully that comes from us most of the time. But the reality is, especially being a parent, you might not always feel very positive.
No, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about it being a pretty thankless job in a certain way. In other ways, it's
pressure.
Yeah, really gratifying in a lot of ways, but in many ways, other jobs you get paid to do it. This one, they take all your money.
It's true.
You know?
It's opposite what it should be, and it's the hardest job in the world.
Yep.
How come you're not getting paid for it? I guess theoretically you're getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And somebody will take care of you when you're old.
Yeah, if you did it right.
If you did it right.
Maybe. I shouldn't say that, but might be something to consider. What are you role modeling for your kids? How are they going to treat you in the old folks' home?
I guess being negative is sort of a good thing in that you don't want to be completely satisfied with your parenting. There's always room for improvement. And to some degree, being negative makes you try harder to fix things. But then again, you'd think being positive would do that. But I guess you always want a certain level of dissatisfaction because you can always do better. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to live in like a positive delusional state as a parent because that can be dangerous too. Thinking about, I think we've mentioned it in a past podcast, but how would we define positive? And the way I define it is being constructive and optimistic, kind of orienting yourself in perspective towards your family, the day, life in a constructive way. Whereas negative, I see it as non-constructive, pessimistic, destructive. Yep. Yeah, and so have you heard of negative sentiment override?
Nope.
So negative sentiment override, it's positive. It comes up a lot in marital counseling. Oftentimes you get to a point where the negative feelings heavily outweigh the positive feelings. And then even something that might be a positive thing that your partner does, you interpret it as negative.
Just because of where you are?
Yeah, right. So like maybe your husband brings you home flowers or your wife makes you dinner. So stereotypical, but I'm going with it today.
We're going to get calls about that. It'd be nice if we got calls about that.
Yeah. We should get some calls at some point, we hope. So dear fans, please call us. But say, your husband brings you flowers, but you're in a negative sentiment override state. And so in your head, instead of it being, oh, wow, he's thinking of me, it's like, oh, what did he do now that he's trying to make up for?
What did he do wrong?
Yeah. Or, your wife made you dinner when you got home from work. And instead of being like, oh, I really appreciate that, how thoughtful of her to do that.
She's having an affair.
Oh, that's very negative. Yeah.
That's negative space.
Right. What is she hiding or whatever? Or she didn't even, just go into a negative place. And so I think that can happen with especially teenagers or toddlers because they're developmental periods that are very taxing, especially for certain personalities in kids.
Right.
I think some are maybe more challenging than others. I was hell on wheels as a teenager. I was a wild child.
That.
Yeah.
I've never spoken with your family members about it, but I'd like to hear
that would be
more
funny.
from somebody else.
Oh my God, we should have our parents come on and have the other person interview them about how we were as teenagers.
That's great.
That'd be great.
We'll put that on the list.
Okay.
I was going to say, this is sort of a general psychiatric thing or psychological thing, but I was talking with a psychiatrist who had read more than I did and said that in terms of neuronal networks, they've seen that actually sort of the size of the network actually shrinks when you're in sort of a bad space and you actually
I feel that
you
in my
can't
head.
make connections that you would otherwise. It's,
limiting.
You've been in a space where you're just in a
deconstructive.
bad mood and you just cannot see how you possibly could feel good about and the next day it's different. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, it's really, And so, great, you're pointing out one thing. So as a parent, if we are experiencing a lot of negative sentiment override or negativity is coming up a lot for us, then maybe that is one thing to check to make sure there isn't some form of depression going on, or is there a med for that, right?
Right.
Because, I don't know, that, it's just part of our podcast, so why the hell not say it? But beyond that, is there a med for that? I was going to say one other thing about, what did we say right before the neuronal network? I love that statement.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Network.
I don't remember, but I got something else to say.
Okay, keep going.
Well, I got a couple things to say.
The wheels are coming alive.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a saying, but I just made it up.
You say
the
the
wheels are coming alive. I only slept a few hours last night.
Because of your kids.
Because of my kids. Yeah. Very real.
I didn't sleep that much either, which is probably why I'm forgetful.
And that's why we're talking about negative feelings today.
I don't feel negative so much as just out of it.
Yeah, spacey.
But animals have been raising children for millions of years, right? Dinosaurs and stuff. And somehow it works out. But humans think so much.
Yep.
We were talking yesterday, and part of parenting, I came up with this analogy that parenting is being on a sinking ship, trying to make it to the other shore, and taking on water. And right, you like this?
Feeling real positive with this one, Dunc.
And part of you wants to just abandon ship.
Get the hell off of that
abandon
ship.
parenting, right, and just leave. And part of you feels like you have to go down with a ship. And part of you just wants to make it to the other.
A valiant captain.
Damn sure.
Yep.
And we were
In my
talking.
head, I'm repairing the ship already.
What's that?
I'm trying to get this ship repaired.
I know. Well, we talk about ways to kind of keep your ship, metaphorically speaking, floating. And there's lots of sort of idealistic principles and systems and suggestions by psychologists as to the perfect parenting approach. But parenting's messy. And no matter what, you're taking on water.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to duct tape and you just have to get through. And I've noticed even with my own kids, ultimately the problems go away despite me. Kids will outgrow certain things.
Yep.
It seems irrelevant in terms of what I do.
Yeah.
But some of these things just go away over time. And if you can just hang on and keep patching stuff, I think an optimistic message, things usually work out okay.
Yeah, Duncan's going to love this analogy. It's almost like the womb, right?
No, we don't talk about the womb, do we?
Come on, you're an MD. You should be very comfortable talking about wombs.
I didn't do so great in my OBGYN rotations. Wasn't my favorite.
Those poor women. Imagine seeing Duncan walk in. That'd be a nightmare.
They didn't let me in the room, so.
I know, I bet, yeah.
No,
I feel bad for
they don't
guys.
want men in the room while they deliver baby. I totally get that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I was
But I
there
know there's a
when
lot of
my
great
own kids were born.
gynecologist males out there, so nothing against that. But
Right.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about negativity.
Negativity. But you said right before that
Isn't it great listening to a show by two exhausted parents who can't remember anything about negativity?
we're just too damn positive. No, you said something really good. The kids outgrow.
Thanks, Ben.
Oh, the womb. We're back to the womb.
Yes. It's too bad.
Because it's really similar, right? Like a woman gets impregnated, and then you're a container for this miraculous life,
Right.
right? And so, yeah, making sure that the environment is healthy and essentially not interfering often. It's at maximum support, minimum interference.
It just occurred to me. Let's talk about meds for a second.
Got to. He's going to get the hell out of the womb subject.
It just happens every now and then. It's not that infrequent. Get a 16-year-old, 15, 16-year-old. It seems like a disaster. The mood's all messed up and suicidal thoughts and meds aren't doing great. And then they'll come back in 5 years
Wow.
as if nothing happened.
Yep.
And they just outgrow some of this stuff.
Developmental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't look it looks way out of proportion, outside the
Yep.
bell curve. I think a lot of times it just gets better. You just have to survive and not jump off the
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah, this too shall pass, right? With the negativity, I think it's a good reminder when we're in the negative mindset as a parent that sometimes you just have to see it through. Perseverance. Stick with it and wait for your
More duct
neuronal
tape.
networks to get active again, and maybe rest, right? In the meantime, I think earlier today you said cry. Sometimes you need
Yeah,
a
we
good
cry. Right? Because
whatever.
not everything's great
Yeah.
all the time.
Sometimes you don't know why you're feeling negative, but you just are. Maybe it's a biorhythm. Maybe it's your kid just did something outrageous. You're tired.
And we talk about one of our sayings, embrace all feelings, guide all behaviors.
Yep.
It's good to role model for kids that you can feel really crappy and still do what you need to do.
Yep.
It's a great, did we talk about, I think we talked about this, book called, God, what's it called?
Good book.
Anyways, there's a story in it about how anxious people get these days about being anxious.
Yeah.
How angry they get about being angry, as if you're not supposed to have negative feelings.
Right. It's the idea of like you can have pain or you can add suffering to it.
Right.
Right.
Suffering is
Optional.
deep. It's optional.
Is that how it goes? There's some profound saying out there about that. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is
That's right.
optional.
That's our fact checker.
Yep.
Checking with us
Ben
through
Gill,
our
our audio
earpieces.
guy.
Right. What was I saying?
Your book about
The book.
not
Yeah. And in the old days, in
feelings
the
about
1800s,
feelings.
a guy would be on a farm, wake up, and say, "Today feels really shitty." These days, there'd be a huge analysis after that. Back then, this is a shitty day. You know what? I better go
I
shovel
still
hay.
need to
Yeah.
go get some food.
You just sort of say that's just the way some days are.
Yep. Yeah. Over analyzing maybe.
There's this feeling, what do they call it in terms of the culture? It's like, it's very pleasure seeking now that you got instant
Hedonistic.
gratification with cell phones and
The cult of happiness.
cult of happiness, Facebook,
Yeah.
everybody's happy on it, right?
Yep.
And that you get the sense that you should feel good all the time. You should
Yeah.
feel positive.
You always get the edited version.
Right. So that just ain't true.
Yeah, and I think there's really good reason sometimes for negative or not happy mind states, right? In terms of like, I think of putting your hand on a stove that hurts, but it's giving your body important feedback.
Right.
And if we try to do away with pain or things that feel more negative, the feeling part of it, then I think we're getting rid of really important aspects of life and
Right.
information about life and our relationship with it. Yeah, so sometimes you just got to persevere as a parent when you're feeling negative. Maybe sometimes you cry. Maybe sometimes you talk to someone, call a friend, get some
Yeah,
support.
isn't that great with friends? Like instantly you're talking and sharing stories and hear stuff happen to their kids or with their relationships, and I instantly feel better. I don't
Yeah.
feel bad about it, but it's great. You sort of commiserate, and
Not
everybody's
alone.
going through the same stuff. It just looks sort of different.
Universality. It's like group therapy.
Right.
Group
That's
therapy.
what we do here.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
your kids are younger, so I don't know if you'd experience this so much, but I've seen this with, I got a couple teens now, but just pulling my hair out, trying to fix a problem and getting increasingly negative about it, and then getting completely surprised by a kid coming down and saying sorry, or it's like, light from the skies. Don't expect
I like that.
something to improve, but they're getting older and they're improving too. So
Yeah. Yep.
is this helping
Helping
with a negative day?
with the negative day. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think talking about it's always helpful.
We commiserate about our own parenting experiences.
Yeah, and I think one thing you've said often throughout, the past 4 years or so when I've had young babies, saying, sometimes you have to lower your expectations. I like that. It's helpful
Totally,
in
right?
moments, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not like your overall life goals or aims. You want to keep them, but lowering your expectations for, even like for me, sometimes like cleanliness around the house,
Oh,
or
my goodness.
getting to places on time as frequently as I did before, or functioning to the degree that I did.
I feel better already.
I feel better.
Literally pretty recently, I made the decision. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I made the decision. My house is going to look like an effing disaster
Oh, I love it.
until my kids are 18.
Okay.
And then maybe it'll improve. But that's just helped me think,
Yeah.
just accept some things are going to be the way they are, at least for a time.
Yep.
And maybe you'll get better. Ultimately,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter, right?
I know. I think I'm high in neuroticism in that way. Right? Which someday we'll have to talk about personality types and how, as a parent, they affect you, or
Right.
the play that has on your parenting style, or like your child's personality, how that might affect you as a parent. But I think that I'm higher in neuroticism, which means negative. I'm more quick to negative emotion. I'm more affected by it than someone who's low in it, who's more easygoing. And I think that is a challenge for me as a parent. I have to sometimes be able to tolerate more if something's out of place. And I'm like, I'm sounding like I'm a hyper clean, organized human, but I'm not to that.
No, but you got 3 boys.
Yeah, very
so
active
to be even
boys.
a little neurotic and wanting things clean and 3 boys,
Yeah.
that's
and
a recipe
4
for
dogs.
disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a husband.
And a husband. But he's super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like Paul.
Yeah, Paul's great. He's a great dad. He's very hands-on, involved in
And
the house.
lower in neuroticism with,
I think so, yeah, definitely.
you need that balance.
Yep. Yeah. So what else do folks do when they get in a negative mindset?
I think we covered it all. How many things are there to do?
Probably. There's, okay.
Well, it's part of the beauty
Practice.
of co-parenting, if you're fortunate enough to be able to co-parent, is to take
Hand
a
it
break
off.
and hand it off and go collect
Take
your stuff
space.
together,
Yeah.
take space.
Go to work.
And, another thing that's useful, and I've done this, is just inform your kids that you're having a bad day.
I do
And
that
you're
often.
sorry if you're a little snappy and stuff, but,
Yep.
or you guys kind of have to tread carefully today because
Right.
I'm sort of, right on the verge. And
Yep. I need your
a lot
your
of
help.
times they respect that.
Yep. Because it will come out sideways usually if you don't.
Yeah.
And I think it is very healthy if you're embracing your feelings and guiding your behaviors when you say that.
Did I tell
to
you about
them.
my son's 1 in 4 mornings?
No.
I didn't.
No.
No. So he's a great kid. He is also a bit moody. And
Gets that from dad.
different ways.
Different
yeah,
ways.
yeah. Different. He
A
got
little
sort
bit
of
from everyone.
the double hit. But some days, and it works out to be 1 in 4 mornings.
Wow.
Almost like clockwork. Sometimes you get 2 in a row, but then you won't. Anyways, of just being sour, angry, and he typically wrestles and fights with inanimate objects. stuff will fall in the fridge. He's trying to shove stuff in his backpack.
His
it's all
neuronal
falling
network
out.
is limited.
It's like reduced to zero.
Because clumsiness gets. Have you ever noticed that when you're negative, you're more clumsy?
I think Freud was right. I think it's intentional
Oh wow.
errors and mistakes. We could talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I think
unconscious emoting.
So, anyways, and he's
1 in
funny
4.
now. He recognizes it, and he'll actually say it's a 1 in 4 morning, or tomorrow's gonna be a 1 in 4 morning, and he snaps out of it by.
It wakes up just kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's notable.
How old was he when you started to see that pattern?
10? Yeah.
I
So
wish I was a little more predictable like that. Right? You could like plan for your every 4th morning.
you could actually schedule like an extra
Right.
cup of coffee.
Yes. I like that.
How do you support a co-parent who's getting negative?
It's an important question. I know for me, I often try to just be more involved on those days, take on whatever.
Shoulder more of the load.
Yeah. Let me play with the kids more. Let me take the kids out, have some space.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yep. Grab them and whisk them off to
The playground.
breakfast or playground.
Yep.
And co-parents are usually very appreciative of that.
Yeah, just having a little space. Yeah. What else can you do for a co-parent?
For a co-parent,
Embrace their feelings. help
embrace their
guide
feelings.
Their behavior.
But if you try to guide their behaviors, that doesn't always go great.
Yeah.
I found that you don't say, "What are you getting so upset about?"
Yeah, people usually don't like that. Or,
No.
Yeah. Can feel like you're accusing them of something.
Right.
Yeah, I find that Paul is pretty receptive, though, to guiding behavior. Like, what can I do to help
Yes,
the
that's a good one.
behavior? Yeah, I think sometimes to feel like you're not alone in it or that there's nothing wrong with you for having a bad day is really important, too. Doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Doesn't mean you don't like your kids. It doesn't mean...
Right. It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean everything won't turn out okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Just duct tape. Yeah. Look for the shore.
Yeah, and I think that communicating with your kids can be very helpful too, to just say, you know what, like, and if you're doing this every day, then maybe you need to really check in and talk to someone, a doctor or a therapist, about why am I perpetually in a negative mood. But if it's, now and again that you're being hit with this random negativity, or 1 in 4 days that you have the negativity going on, I think it is helpful to just communicate clearly about it. Don't fight because you're angry, but just let people know I'm having a tough day. Can we do something a little bit more low key? Or if you can't do that, just letting people know so that you don't feel alone.
Right. You know what I wanted to work into this podcast? I don't even know how to do it exactly. So what was that fact you read today about animals?
So it's from Franz de Waal's book about gender through the eyes of primatologist, and the title is different. And in it, I forget the name of the chapter, and as a busy mom, I'm slowly going through the book, but I love it. And I forget why he was talking about it or how it relates, but he said primatologists do not believe, I think the general consensus is that they don't think animals know that, or correlate or know, I don't know what the right word is, that when you get pregnant from having sex. So they see that as a different thing, right? So as humans, we know that pregnancy comes from having sex.
They understand pregnancy and they understand sex, but they don't connect the two?
Link the two. Yeah, because when you think about it, I mean, it's a pretty... I never thought about how complex that really is, that however long the gestation period is for different animals, right? For us, it's the 10 months that you're pregnant for. But you can see how maybe if animals were to have sex and then 10 months later you have a baby, like how do you correlate that? Or maybe even the day before they had sex and had the baby, like not that baby, but...
Probably humans couldn't do it before they could speak language either. And then somebody must have made the connection.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be
somebody
an
should have gotten a lot more credit than that.
Yeah. Amazing moment in time.
That's part of it though, right? Is we were talking, people think. particularly in this day and age where there's more luxury to think. You're not just scrambling to survive.
You have more calories to think with.
More calories to think with, more time to think. And you can overthink parenting. You can overthink, you get stuck in a real negative place.
Yeah.
And part of the trick is probably stopping thinking and just doing.
Yep, engaging more. Yeah. Sometimes I actually really like when I'm in a negative mood to just work, right?
Yes.
Like to get your hands dirty or just like engage with doing versus being in the mind, getting out of yourself and just doing.
Right.
But yeah, and then Duncan and I were talking about how does our ability to think so comprehensively actually hinder our parenting skills, right? Like, because I don't necessarily think that bonobos, or maybe they do, I don't know, but or lions or dogs think about, oh, if I parent this way, how will it affect who my kid's going to be
Right.
in 18 years? Will they get into college? Or like all the fears that parents nowadays have about what they're doing to their child via parenting. It's a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure. And the way animals do it is sort of one of our number one principles. They're role models, and they don't even know they're role models.
Yeah.
But if you can survive as an animal and you can show that to your kids, they learn how to survive.
Lead the way.
Which is why role modeling is
so key to our
fundamental.
Approach. Yep, looking at self.
So even if you overthink, as long as you're surviving every day and making ends meet, you're doing a service.
Yeah.
Right? You're parenting.
Parenting. Yeah, lowering your expectations a little bit, but in a positive way, right? Doing almost what would Joe often say? Don't give up, give in. Isn't that great?
Go with the willow tree versus the oak in the wind, right?
Yeah,
the
be more flexible.
Oak falls over. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes too, I think, although as parents we're very important in our child's lives, obviously, but then sometimes we have to remind ourselves too that we're actually sometimes not that important as we feel like we are. Kids self-socialize a lot.
Right.
They're picking what they want. Yeah, we aren't in charge of the show.
No. It takes a little bit of pressure off.
Yeah. Yep. And don't use that in a negative way to be irresponsible.
No, you still need to do what you need to do, but kids sometimes just,
need to be
they're
left
grown
alone.
up on their own. I feel better.
I feel great. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed our show today.
Good. We'll talk more later.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Is There a Med for That? For more information about our podcast and our clinical work, visit our website at medforthat.com.
If you've got questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to email us at contact@medforthat.com. We'd love to answer some of your questions on air.
Have a great day.